Welcome back to episode 3 of the Successory show, where we help you create life and success in sport. We mostly do this by being highly over-caffeinated, never having the ability to shut up, and probably annoying most of you. But I've heard that our tactics are effective.
I feel like it's a good description of me. Highly caffeinated, overly annoying, but effective.
Trevor does like to repeat himself 3 times. He says that the reason why he does that is because it takes people 3 times to grasp a concept.
This is true, scientifically proven.
Personally, I think it's because he's forgotten that he said it already, but...
I'm also old, also possible. Who are you?
So this is episode 3 called Move the Line.
Move the line.
We'll get more into that in a little bit. But first I gotta check in with my co-host, my equally as great half, Trevor. How are you doing this week?
Oh, that's good. I moved up. I think I was like the lower half the first 2 episodes. So by episode 3, see, 3 times. Is it 3rd time's a charm? It all makes sense. It's been a weird week. Had a little bit of a setback injury-wise, but it's just part of the sport. It's part of any sport. I don't know any athlete who's never had a strain or pull or tear or something that holds them back, but nothing that I'm worried about. Meets in 6 weeks, so if I, worst case scenario, take a token bench, it's not going to affect my squat, it's not going to affect my deadlift. I'm happy, and I've drank a Monster before this, so I'm super caffeinated. So this is also Highly Caffeinated Conversations 3.
Well, I want to jump in here first before you get any further, because I feel like if Tony were on the podcast, he would call your bench press, even without a torn pec, a token bench press.
Absolutely.
Right?
So it's like no loss at all.
So he's probably asking if it's going to be any different at all.
No. The whole goal is just not to press less, not to press more. This is the reverse progress. I'm trying not to lose ground. I'm not worried about gaining ground. At least not on the bench press.
So yeah, it should be interesting. There was a very terrifying moment when I'm spotting and I hand it out and everything's going great and he's moving at the speed of sound like he always does, and then just like the most terrifying ow I've ever heard from Trevor, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And it was reverse grip, so it was like down like at the bottom of the sternum, and he just lets it drop, and I was like, this is terrifying.
I absorbed into the belly of power. It was like, don't fight this one, because we made that mistake before by fighting it and then tearing the muscle more. I'm like, just let it go.
Yeah, so that was really exciting. Really gets the heart pumping.
Yeah, when the caffeine's not enough, you just tear it back.
Please, nobody try this at home.
You've been warned.
We're not doctors. We don't recommend this.
Sometimes I pretend to be a doctor. Doctor?
We keep that conversation to ourselves.
See, now you know how to get Riley to be quiet. You just like, you want to play doctor? Okay.
It's private.
It's private. But this is a topic we talk about a lot, moving the line. And it has to do with how we measure progress, because so many people see things in a black and white scale. They say, let's say hypothetically, I deadlift 700 pounds and I want to deadlift 800 pounds. If I haven't deadlifted 800 pounds, I've failed. And just doesn't allow you to see any progress, because along the way, if you're at 700 now and you're working way towards 800, you're going to pull 705, 710, 715. It's just how it goes, and that's all measurable progress. It means you're moving towards the goal, not away from the goal. And so many people just focus on the goal itself, and we only see our long-term goals. And there's so much that happens in the learning process in between. For example of that, like when I was only pulling 600 pounds, using myself as an example, I had a severe injury and I was hospitalized for it, and the doctor looked at me and said I was never going to lift again, and I was like heartbroken. Like I saw this as a complete failure, and I cursed him out, and we've talked about this in many different podcasts, but I got back to it, and that was at a time where I was only pulling 610, and my most recent deadlift PR is 800, so it was a long way to go. I had to learn so much more. I switched styles completely from conventional to sumo, rebuilt everything around. I stopped competing and training in strongman and focused 100% on powerlifting, and became an exceptionally efficient lifter in how I move things, which is what I do as I teach people now how to move more efficiently to increase their strength, and using thoracic extension, not just lumbar extension, the whole nine. So it was immeasurable amount of progress from 610 to 810, 800, even though 800 at the time wasn't the goal. My goal was just to get back to the bar, which I far exceeded, but the amount of learning that took place in between only happened because I recognized the journey and the small steps in between and how I can move the line further and further and further.
To give some context to this, like why this is a topic, we put it up on both of our stories this past Friday and asked the question, what are some ways that you measure your success? And I feel like it was kind of a trick question based on the way that people answered it. Like most people their answers were, well, by achieving the goal. And the
Pass
problem,
or fail only.
right? So the problem with that is exactly what Trevor's talking about. So if your goal is to deadlift 600 pounds, so you in your current deadlift is say 500. So you're meaning to tell me that every single time that you hit a PR between 500 and 600, you're saying that that's a fail because you're not at 600 yet. Like you're not taking the time to realize that there are stepping stone goals in between the small one and the large one. And most people can't quantify or like measure that type of success. And so it was actually like kind of, I don't want to say it was funny, but it was kind of funny how many people really didn't understand how to measure their success or their goals. And like by proxy, you fail if you're not hitting your goal in like, one try. So if you have a 500-pound deadlift and you load up 600 pounds and you try and you fail, and then maybe like the next time you load up 550 and you try and fail, like you're setting yourself backwards because you haven't tried to earn each stepping stone goal in between those. Like you're just trying to go balls to the wall and you're not having measurable goals. I think that's like they tell you to do to have SMART goals, right? So it's specific, measurable, attainable.
Timeline.
That's the T. The R is
reachable.
Whatever.
Clearly, we didn't study for this acronym, but you hear it a lot with SMART, making sure your goals are SMART.
It's realistic.
Realistic. Okay. Yeah.
Realistic. It's realistic. So we're focusing here on the measurable, like the M part of SMART. And that's what most people can't do, is like they're just not seeing that these kind of things can be tracked. They're not seeing that, they're not tracking that at all for themselves. So like I said earlier, by proxy, everything is a failure until you get to that large one. You're not able to like identify your individual small successes in between.
Right, which is ironic because we use measurable things all the time. We use measurable things if we're cooking, if we're measuring our macros. If you check your scale weight every day, you're measuring whether you went up or down, but we tend to lose sight of all that's in between of a big goal. We only see the big goal instead of the small baby steps. So what happens is people tend to overshoot. So you've made progress, you've had a good training cycle, and I have a lifter who's guilty of this, he recognizes it, but he's been guilty of it twice now. And he had a 655 deadlift, and both times when we went to test his deadlift, training is going great. He jumped to 675. He jumped for a 20-pound PR. Ciao. But both times he missed, and he's like, I failed. And it's like, and then when I went back, he couldn't do it because he burnt himself out. But 660 would have been a PR, and that would have been measurable progress. It could have been a win for the day, and it could have been something he walked away from. And so many lifters or athletes are guilty of that, of trying to exceed the goal and smash the goal instead of just reaching the goal, because they're not looking at the measurable small wins and small progress. And if I'm able to hypothetically compete 3 times a year, and if I improved each lift 5 pounds each time a year, that's going to be, 45 to 60 pounds of improvement on my total within every year. And if I did that every year for 3 or 4 years in a row, all of a sudden I have 220 pounds more on my total, which is what a lot of people are really aiming for, but that's a 3-year journey, not a 3-month journey. So there's a learning process.
Yeah, that's what people struggle with. There's other, not just in specific lifting, but like, let's say that you are making it a goal to, like, one thing that Trevor and I do every day is we walk every single day, right? So let's say that your newest goal in getting healthier is you want to walk. You want to walk more. Being more realistic and being able to measure this type of progress would be the easiest way to ease yourself into a new kind of habit would be to not go full on, all right, I have to do 7 days of walking every single day or else I failed. So the easier way to do this would be to say, like, okay, I'm gonna walk on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So that's 3 days a week that you're walking, right?
Which is 3 more days than you had before.
Than you already were, and that's a stepping stone. That's a stepping stone goal. So, when you're walking 3 days a week and then suddenly you add in a 4th day, you're doing 4 more than you were originally. So it's much easier to add small, such as like adding on 1 day of walking onto your 3 days rather than trying to start with 7. So you do have to work backwards and you do have to work incrementally and smaller, or else you do kind of feel like you fall short 24/7, and that's not a good feeling, and that's discouraging, and then no one wants to try to achieve the goal because they feel like they're falling short all the time.
Yeah, and I remember reading a study somewhere, which is kind of cool. They talked about creating exercise habits. It was like a long-term 10-week study. And the study starts with assigning people 2 groups, and it was 10 push-ups every day or 1 push-up every day, and they had to try and achieve it every single day. Well, obviously the group that was assigned automatically 10 push-ups every day didn't have a very high success rate because it was 10 push-ups, they weren't used to doing no push-ups. And the group that just had to do 1 push-up, how hard was it to justify not doing 1 single push-up? And after the 10 weeks, almost the entirety of the group that was doing 1 push-up a day was able to still do the push-up. So basically they created an exercise habit every single day of 1 push-up. And it shows you that you're already down to doing 1, like maybe just do 2, or maybe I'll do 3 today. Or like Riley said, You know, if you look at it, I need to walk 3 miles a day every day, you're probably not going to take on that habit. But if it's I walk 100 feet today and 200 feet tomorrow, and if I do grid 300 feet the next day, you know, we did have a great answer from Jenna Stoddard, who one of my clients who actually measured or used it as the measurable progress she makes along the way towards her goal is what she looks at as her achievement. And we didn't have a lot of people who hit one that was funny. Dick length. Why? Well, it's like I measure my progress in dick length. Well, good on you. Which was funny, but at the same time, it's like we were surprised, and that's why we put the post out there and make it interactive. What people's perspective is. You know, we're gonna hopefully talk about these things along the way, and that's why the whole show is about success, is because these things are important for your perspective and for your growth and for your achievement.
Yeah, I think actually Boldrin had a pretty good one. He said staying consistent with the steps needed towards reaching a goal, even on off days.
America's sweetheart, Chris Boldrin.
So he's not talking about how the only way that he measures success is by achieving the goal. He's talking about how he has to stay consistent towards working towards that goal, even if it's a crappy day. So I feel like that was a really good answer. There was one interesting one where she mentioned that unfortunately sometimes comparing herself to others was how she measured success, which that can get into like a really, really bad rabbit hole of inadequacy, because you know, Instagram is a highlight reel. So if you're consistently trying to compare your success to other people, you'll probably feel worse about yourself because people are only posting what's good for them on social media. And that's like you can't know what's going on in that person's life every single day to know if they are struggling to meet these goals, just like you are. They're only going to post what's good. So I think that trying to do that is probably like the least, the path that I would go the least is comparing yourself to others. At least I know that gets me nowhere when I do that. It just doesn't make you feel good about yourself.
It's the expression that if you shoot for the moon and you miss, you still land in the stars, or something like that.
So something really cheesy.
Super cheesy. But there's a lot of truth to that. So if you aim for an outlandish goal, and even if you don't make it, you're further along than where you started, as long as you're looking at the process and looking at the steps. And what do I have to do to get there? Who do I need on my team to help me? And how can I achieve it? So that's how I like to look at it, is how much further have I gone along than where I started? And am I happy with the progress I'm making? If not, what do I need to change? It's all about accountability for those things. So like if I'm not achieving a goal, it's because I'm not doing something. We have all the resources available. We just have to systemize and organize and structure and then do the program, do the steps. So if I haven't achieved something, I know it's on me. Even if I'm not the one who's making the plan, it's still on me because there's something I didn't do that didn't get me there. That's the most important thing people understand. Is like, oh, my coach didn't do this, or my training partners didn't show up, or my handler didn't get there on time. None of that matters. It's on you. It's your goal. It's not their goal. They're helping you achieve your goal, but they're not responsible for your goal. You are.
Exactly. I do think that I think that people are a little nervous to have more quote unquote realistic goals. Just like pure observation on social media when people do Q&As and stuff, I feel like that's a common question, is someone to ask, like, what are your goals?
Yeah.
And people always put like really, really outlandish ones, you know, like, I can't, you know, like top 5 all-time world record, or like, you know, getting a world record, which these are all great. Like you should have big, lofty, unrealistic goals or semi-realistic goals, you know, depending on the timeline.
Right, those wouldn't be SMART goals because they're not reachable.
Right, and I think that's a problem, is that, you know, if your goal is something as simple as to walk 3 to 4 days a week, people feel slightly shamed into like putting that on their goals list because they're like, oh, well, I should already like do those things, and that's really not that big of a deal, and like people won't really care about that one. Those goals are important too. So like, I don't think that people should feel shameful about the size of their goals that they're trying to reach. Like if your goal is to drink 1 gallon of water a day, like that's your goal, you know, like that is one. It shouldn't matter that it's not, you know, get a world record, or it's not, you know, buy a house in the next year or something. Like these goals don't have to be outlandish and ridiculous all the time in order to be helpful for you. I think that's where people kind of
they need to be mundane.
Yeah.
There was a cool post from Greg Penora, and he said, you know, success isn't built in one day, it's built over thousands of days that look exactly the same. And what he's referring to is being consistent.
Yeah, it's just once again, with social media being like the highlight reel that it is, it's like if you aren't putting out something that looks like you're, you know, shitting gold every single day, then you're looked down upon for whatever your goal is, and that's not
Should
realistic.
I start sharing my poops because they're magical?
You piss excellence, right?
Piss excellence, yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, you should see my boobs. But no, there's truth to that, and there's a lot of people who show their highlights, but it doesn't show the reality. There are some high level lifters, big name lifters, who legitimately haven't improved their platform total in 2 or 3 years, even though they're showing you all these highlights in the gym or circuit lifts. You know, I've had fun putting up circuit lifts or big lifts, but it doesn't mean anything. You know, it's not about what it does in one day. It's about moving the line, and have I moved the line, and that's what's really important.
Yeah, I think this actually might have been inspired by like a training session I had, like a bench. I don't know. I feel like I haven't personally like
You inspire me.
Yeah. I think this started in the garage though. You know, and I think it might have been over like a bench rep PR or a pause PR, something very.
I think that's what it was.
small.
Is it was like you went from the same weight you had hit for a touch and go double to a pause double. It was the same way, and there was actually room for a third, but it wasn't meant to be to failure. It was just supposed to be a certain RPE. And I talked about that, about showing the progress, is measurable progress, because you could hit it in a harder format, and I think you even did it with a specialty bar too, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, and I had that similar kind of conversation with one of my lifters, Rose, who her best bench in comp was 180, and then last week she hit that for a double. And at first she was kind of like, she didn't seem super excited about it. And I was like, you just doubled your comp best in off season, not peaked. You know, no big deal. No handoff, no spotter, no, you know what I mean? Like the best,
Jesus spot.
Yeah. You know, and it moved really well. And I was like, so you mean to tell me that you're not peaked, you just hit your comp best for a double and you're like not happy about it?
And that means it's now any day weight, which is what we talk about, recognizing the progress and moving the line, because what used to be your PR is now any day weight.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that, the any day weight thing. That's always exciting when it's like I guess it's kind of exciting because now when I look at certain percentages that I have, I'm like, damn, I wish the percentage wasn't this high because it's hard.
Yeah, the stronger you get, the harder the work gets to get even further. So be prepared for some harder work down the line.
Yeah, so I mean, I think other than that, a couple other responses that we had, like most of them were like, sounds redundant, achieving the goal. My lifter Liz said one way is when my actions are in line with my beliefs and I feel like I'm living authentically. And I thought that was a pretty cool.
Well, I like to look at it outside of sport. And this sounds strange, but how many college dropout billionaires do we have in this country alone? And that sounds weird because you go to college and your goal is to get the degree. And these guys dropped out, but they're billionaires. They've made multi-billion-dollar companies like a Zuckerberg, like a Bill Gates. These guys didn't even graduate college. So to them, the goal wasn't to get the degree. The goal was to get the information so they could build this company and grow from there, and they exceeded. So sometimes the goal isn't really going to be your long-term or end goal. Sometimes it just sounds good. It sounds good to say, I want to lift this, I want to total that, I want to achieve this. But sometimes along that path, you learn more and you discover what you really want, and the goal can change. To me, the goal is something that you always keep the goal. It's something you always keep a little bit out of reach. And what are you going to learn along the process? And that's why I always talk about moving the line of furthering yourself, making yourself more efficient, making yourself more educated, bringing the right people into your life who are going to help you achieve things. The goal is so much more beyond any achievement. It's about the process and how much you're going to pick up along the way. That to me is true achievement. It doesn't matter if I ever total 2,000, which is not even my goal. It doesn't matter if I ever squat 900 pounds. It'd be awesome if I did, but that's not my end goal. My end goal is so much bigger than just the number I can put up on the platform. It's things I want to achieve in work and products I want to launch and the amount of people I want to reach. I talked about that with Stacy outside of one of her meets, and she was very upset. This is hilarious. She had just set the all-time world squat record. She had just set the all-time world total record, and she's crying and she's mad because we didn't achieve the goal. And I'm like, what's your goal? And she's like, well, I want to leave competitive powerlifting so I can help 1,000 people. I'm like, that's a silly goal. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, you already have, at a time, she had like 32,000 followers already. I'm like, you already reached 32,000 people. Why are you aiming so small? You need to reach 100,000 people. And it kind of changed her mind for a little bit. At that point in time, she's like, you're right. I'm aiming too small. I can do so much more. And then the next meet was the XPC where she broke the all-time world, and it kept growing. And now she's at a point where she got her actual goal, which was she hit her lifting accomplishments. Now she's working on reaching 1,000 people and changing their lives. But that process started with the lifting, but it transferred over to personal development and achievement outside of lifting. So don't look at as pass or fail with a number goal, because that's not the end of the world. That's not your end means. That's part of your process, your journey along the way, which can change based off what you learn and identify. Yeah. Sports aren't forever. We do age, but life is short and it's finite, and we want to make the best of our life, hence success in life and sport, while we put life before sport. Because there's a lot going on.
You mentioned schooling as well, and I feel like a lot of people also use their degree as a success point, but they're doing it poorly, in my opinion. Like, I have a degree in psychology, and I'm not doing anything with psychology, and I'm okay with that, because I feel like a lot of people get a degree and they do nothing with it. Or it's like, cool, you have that degree, then what are you doing with it? And they either hate their job, they're in debt, they're not doing anything that they want to do, they're not fulfilling any goals, dreams that they have. They just have this piece of paper that says that they spent a lot of money and a lot of time doing something that they're doing nothing with now. So it's less about the material, tangible thing that you get, and this can be your degree, this can be your total, this can be whatever. It's less about that tangible item, and it's more about what are you doing with it. So, you know, like, my degree in psychology isn't helping me start my own practice, but it is helping me communicate and talk to lifters and, like, understand how they learn and help them learn better. It is, you know, being transparent online and talking about struggles that I like. To me, I feel more fulfilled with what I'm doing with that in my experience there than if I were doing the latter and actually using.
But when you went to school, the goal was to get a degree.
Well, when I went to school, I switched my major 3 times because I had no idea what I wanted to do.
You learn.
But, like, personally, like, higher standardized education has never been something that I find to be super make or break. That's my personal opinion, not here to debate or argue anyone about that, but I don't find a degree as important as I think a lot of people do, and I find it to be more important of what you can do.
Right. The initials after your name don't describe your capabilities, you do.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, like, if that's your goal is to become a doctor or things like that, like, you definitely have to have those names associated with it.
Again, you really want to play doctor.
All right, that's after we're done here.
Right.
But I think it's less about the tangible item and it's more about what you are doing with your skill set, I think. And, you know, like, if I would have pursued what my degree allowed me to do, like, yeah, I could have been, you know, doing therapy or something like that, and I could have had a cool job in the city and, you know, like, making money or whatever, but I don't think that I would have been as fulfilled with that as I am with what I'm doing now. So I think that focus less on the societal kind of standard that tells you this is what your goal should be, and focus more on what actually makes you feel fulfilled. Focus on continuing to move the line of success like we're talking about.
In a direction that makes you happy. That's really key, is moving the line in a direction that makes you happy and fulfilled. And that could be in sport, that could be in life. And therein lies the problem is people, the way they measure success is if they achieve the goal or if they achieve what was expected of them. That's the worst. Yeah. Because it's what you want for yourself, not to what is expected of you. When people enter a competition all the time, that's what psychologically screws them up. Like, well, people have these expectations, I'm going to hit this total. Well, they have that expectation because you told them you're going to hit that total. You put that pressure on yourself. That's your fault for saying you're going to hit this or hit that. You know, but you have your internal goals, you have your process towards aiming from them, you can pick the group of people who are around them, and you're constantly aiming to move the line towards that goal. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, if it is a smart, actionable goal.
Yeah, the external pressure, I feel attacked because
Maybe.
I definitely put that type of external pressure on myself in situations, and I know a lot of people that do. And, like, realistically, in the long term, no one pays that much attention to what you're doing in order to judge whether or not you did or didn't put up X amount of total. Like, no one's paying that much attention because people inherently are paying more attention to themselves. So if you are stressed out about putting up a total, just realize that no one's going to remember what total you put up a week after the meet.
Nope. But usually they'll remember a caption you put up that helped inspire them.
Yeah.
They're going to remember a video that put up that helped them learn something or a different skill. Or they're going to remember that you said hello when they needed somebody to.
Yes, I feel like those are way more important. I mean, obviously we all want to be strong. We all want to do the best that we possibly can on meet day, and, like, that's what we're all here for. But I do think that the way that you inspire and lead towards others is more important than the number on open powerlifting.
Yeah, so it just means know the direction you're going, know how to move the line in that direction, know who you want on your team, and know how to make sure they're all on the same vision. But don't look at it as pass or fail if you don't ever achieve the long-term goal, because that can change along the way. Look at it as, have I made progress from where I started? Yeah, and you're successful.
Yeah, so basically everyone that answered mine and Trevor's question that said something along the lines of achieving the goal or, like, you know, meeting this goal, hitting success, X, Y, Z, all of those people, we challenge you to understand how to quantify those goals. So set markers for yourself. learn how to track it.
Right? And if you don't manage, you don't measure it, you can't track it.
That's right.
What else you got for me today?
I don't know.
I think we're good. I think we had a good lesson. We had a simple lesson, so we didn't have to go into too much detail. And we talked about some segments. First of all, thank you to everyone who shared the first episodes. That was really overwhelming and really, really cool. It's growing traction, so I always appreciate that. Anyone who left a 5-star review, because we are now on iTunes, and we are on Spotify, we're on Google. So if you leave a review and a 5-star thing, that's awesome because it helps grow the show. If you thumbs up it and like it on YouTube, that's awesome. Please share it as well. I really appreciate that. So we're just trying to help as much as possible. If you have a topic, if you have something you want us to talk about, send it to us. We do put a poll out probably every Friday, so we can track it before we record on Sundays for the topic. And we want to include like get to know us segments or yay or nay things, think that we have opinions on, so we don't have to always talk about just one topic. We can talk about multiple topics and branch out because we talk a lot as it is, especially when caffeinated, which is most of the day. So again, thank you to all who tuned in. Really appreciate that. And I guess that's going to be it till the next week.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I did have something to say, but I got distracted because you kept talking, such is life.
You got distracted by me playing doctor.
Ian, you don't have to call me out like that.
I'm going to go get the white coat and the stethoscope. Don't you worry. I'm going to check your temperature.
Hey, everyone in COVID is doing that right now. Check
You have COVID?
No.
You want to play COVID patient? This got weird.
Please don't put
I
a
will
swab in my
quarantine
nose.
you for 2 weeks.
But, I remember what I was going to say. We do want to make this as interactive as possible. That is why we put up the polls or like Q&As every single week. So the more people that participate, the easier it is for us to talk about it, and the easier it is for us to answer questions. But yeah, we want to do like more fun segments like Trevor said, like yay or nay. You give us a topic, whether it's like monsters, and we'll say yay or nay, which is a very big yay.
Not that mango shit. Nay. Nay.
That one was weird, the blue one? Like
Yeah.
the Fiesta one? Yeah, that one was weird. I'm still, my favorite monster is that mule monster, that Moscow mule monster. But it's just a real big bummer that it's 55 grams of carbs, which is fine. Which is fine for training. But, like most people don't want to drink carbs.
It's your intra-workout of choice. My Moscow Mule.
It's delicious.
My intra-workout carb source.
It's delicious. You can't tell me otherwise.
I can't. I won't argue with you. It is actually pretty good. But awesome. Well, thank you. That was a
So,
good one.
Yep. Anyway, so like, share, subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Talk to us if you want, or don't.
Just know I'm never going to stop talking.
Yeah.
So you start talking.
It doesn't really matter. So we will catch you guys on episode
There'll be 4.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
We're moving the line.
Okay, bye, bye.
All right. Did you just do one of these?